Good afternoon. Thanks for coming to this event with the Minister of Finance of Paraguay, Carlos Fernandez. As you know, the Paraguayan economy has experienced consistent growth over the last 2 decades. While it's the 8th largest economy in Latin America, as a significant exporter of agriculture, livestock, and hydropower, which comprise up to 80% of its direct exports, the country is vulnerable to external and extreme shocks. Paraguay has made progress in poverty reduction, an impressive decline between 2003 and 2022 from levels of almost 52% of the population to slightly below 25%. However, according to a 2024 World Bank report, Paraguayans continue to experience persistent issues such as underinvestment in public infrastructure, high unemployment rates for young people, high rates of informality in the labor force, and high vulnerability to the effects of climate change. How is the current Paraguayan administration addressing these issues to continue the country's path to economic stability and social prosperity? We have initiated this conversation with 2 visits from the current president of Paraguay, first when he was campaigning and then after he was inaugurated. And today, we are very fortunate to have with us Carlos Fernandez Valdovinos, who is the current Minister of Finance, and he's going to discuss the current state of economic affairs in Paraguay and the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. I mean, Carlos Fernandez has been Paraguay Minister of Finance since 2023. Before that, he was the governor of the central bank from, I have it here, 2013 to 2018. He was recognized as Central Bank Governor of the Year in 2017 and 2018. And he worked at the IMF from 2006 to 2013. And before that, he worked as well at the World Bank. I mean, he has a PhD from the University of Chicago. He has lectured at UChicago, at Georgetown University and Universidad San Andrés in Argentina. And he has I think he teaches as well at the Universidad Nacional de Asunción and Universidad Católica Nuestra Señora de la Asunción. So I think we're looking forward towards a very insightful conversation about the current state of affairs in Paraguay, the challenges that lie ahead, and also to understand, I mean, all the things that have gone extremely well in the Paraguayan economy in the last 20 years, also facing a very complicated neighborhood with crisis, sometimes to the south, sometimes to the east. And Paraguay, in the middle of these very volatile currents, has been able to continue in a straight upward line, delivering, I mean, successive and very impressive rates of growth, and I think a very impressive reduction in poverty and improvement in social indicators. So with that, I mean, Minister Fernandez will speak for 25 minutes, and then we will open up to questions, and feel free to discuss, I mean, the state of the Paraguayan economy, but I mean, take advantage of his presence also if you want to also ask, I mean, questions regarding his career throughout public administration in his country, but also in the international sphere in the World Bank and the IMF. So with that, I mean, Carlos, please.
Can you hear me, no? Let me go here, it's easier. I don't have any presentation because otherwise it's Friday afternoon, so I don't think it's a good idea to start talking in a boring way. You forgot to mention on my CV that you were my boss, so that's the most important part on that. Let me start with some numbers. Debt to GDP, almost 60%. Poverty rate, above 50%. Inflation, 2-digit inflation rate. Selected default on the credit rating by credit rating agencies. And I can continue like that. Depreciation, almost 30% in a year, vis-a-vis the dollar. Am I talking about maybe Argentina, Venezuela? No, I'm talking about Paraguay back in 2002. So not all the past has been bright for Paraguay in, for many reasons, but I believe the strongest one is the fact that society actually embraced macroeconomic stability as a public good. Is that right now we're talking about a country that have only 3.2% of inflation rate is going to be the economy that is going to be is going to have the strongest growth performance this year. Debt to GDP is around 36%. There is total stability on the exchange rate between the guarani, local currency, and the US dollar. As a matter of fact, to give you just a number, back in 2002, $1 was 8,000 guaraníes. Right now is 7,300. So it's slightly below to what was 22 years ago. And all that because really, as I mentioned, society really embraced macroeconomic stability as a public good. Let me give you an anecdote on that. I remember we have an inflation target of 4.5% in a given year. I think was back in 2015. And the inflation rate at the end of the year was 4.7, so 0.2% higher. The headline was central bank didn't comply with the inflation target. That was an exaggeration, of course, but you can see that there is a wide agreement on society that we cannot do what other countries are doing in the neighborhood. Talking about the neighborhood, you mentioned rightly that sometimes it's not difficult. It's very difficult to say. And I'm going to take the words of the example of what the President Peña is saying always regarding the neighborhood. The neighborhood is tough for Paraguay, small country surrounded by two giants that have every certain period of time a lot of macroeconomic instability, but the region have been tough for the past 200 years. So for us, it's kind of advantage that we know how to face the headwinds that we're facing usually in the neighborhood. Now, for us in the government, it's not important to, I mean, it's important, but it's not the main objective to get a nice grade from credit rating agencies or for multilateral agencies. What is important actually is the people. Whenever you go and you have the opportunity to really do some public service, think always about the people. So whatever we are trying to do at this moment is going to be good also to get the investment grade rating. But for us, it's important because we're going to be serving really well to those people, especially those who are on a fragile situation, socially and economically. So everything that we're going to be doing during this 5-year period is going to be focused on the people. It's not an easy time. This is a post-pandemic. So we have to really understand the restriction that we can face going forward. For sure, you know President Milei. And for sure, you know the famous phrase, no hay plata. Well, that's something I have to continuously repeat to my colleagues and the cabinet because they have really wonderful idea. The problem is the cost. So in this situation, we really have to prioritize the policies that we are going to implement. And about all, the President Peña being a former Minister of Finance, he understands very well how important is, okay, let's recover what we have lost recently, that is the fiscal and monetary space that we used during the pandemic or the post-pandemic. So this is a time where we stop thinking about what is urgent, for example, counter-cyclical policies or health policies that were very important and very urgent, during the pandemic times. And right now we have the luxury to start thinking and start acting, especially on the medium term. We can think about structural changes in the economy. That is going to be important, and that is the focus of the current administration, on top of what is going to be recover the macroeconomic space to do sometimes some macroeconomic countercyclical policy, because we are always subject to a shock. Now, our view is that, yes, the public sector could be useful, especially in doing some countercyclical policy, but to get sustainable growth rate, you need private sector participation. That's for sure. I always mention that the policies is like, well, like that chair with 4 legs, and you have the legs of monetary, fiscal, exchange rate, and financial policies. On top of that is you can sit comfortable. If one of those policies fail, then it's not going to be comfortable to be sitting over there, and you can fall on the floor. So for us, it's important to keep those 4 legs strong. And on top of the chair, then we can start building the economy. And the economy for us is going to be built by the private sector. Yes, we are sometimes, or some people, especially politicians, always think about next election and not next generation. But we really believe that it's going to be the private sector who is going to be the main engine of growth going forward. We can do some stuff, but we have to know where is going to be that we're going to put the money, the scarce money that we have at this moment. And for that, the president has defined 4 areas: health, education, security, and the social safety net. So going forward, those are going to be the priority for the money that we have collecting taxes. Now, going forward, we are thinking about being something else than what Alejandro mentioned. I always say during seminars or in my classes at Chicago, well, I am a so-so economist, but if I tried to play soccer, I would have been much awful than being an economist. So God gave us a lot of water, a very fertile land. And for that reason, we are and will continue to be a country that will contribute to food security in the world, because we're producing a lot of food for the world. We are producing more than what we consume. We're exporters. Now, that is something that could be the base for our economy, but that is not going to be the end of our economy. We're thinking about presenting Paraguay as a country that is something else than just the country that helps to secure food security in the world. That for sure we will continue to do that. Therefore, we were thinking about, well, what to do. You may know what is Itaipu. And Itaipu is the largest hydroelectrical dam, the largest generator in the world of clean and renewable energy. As a matter of fact, when I go to seminars or at the table with many people, I say, well, Paraguay refused to do the green transition on electricity. And everyone start looking at me saying, this guy, what is this guy? He's crazy. Why he's talking about like that? And then after that, I say, well, I refuse to do a transition because at this point in time, we already produce 100% of our electricity by means of clean and renewable energy produced by Itaipu, Yacyretá, and Nacaragua. So that means that Paraguay is 2050. Some people want to reach that level by 2050, but from now, we are there, 2050. Okay, 2 things then: food security, clean and renewable energy. Still not enough for my country. So when discussing what is the view of the country we want to have, of the economy we want to have, is okay, let's do something that will complement both stuff and try to present Paraguay with something else. And we start talking about something that probably is not well known, and what we call the Green Paraguay. What's Green Paraguay? Well, Green Paraguay is an effort to position Paraguay as a country that is going to be a showcase for sustainable in all the sense, on the macroeconomic point of view, on the environmental point of view, a country that is going to have sustainable growth rates in the future, a strong and sustainable growth rate. Yesterday, we have a seminar at the IMF where I was talking in that seminar. The name was Paraguay from Macroeconomic Stability to Green Growth Rate. Because I was explaining the plans that we have. It's only important to get some economic diversification. So we look at the matrix, study, and say, okay, we have water. We have also energy, because we have excess energy. We are actually the largest electricity exporter of the world. And with the combination of that, we can do something that is called green hydrogen. Green hydrogen. Because we're happy, but we're not totally happy with the fact that we have Itaipu. Itaipu someday is going to, due to domestic consumption, we are going to finish or end the excess energy. So we're thinking about using that in order to produce green hydrogen. Okay, that's good, but that's costly. You cannot use it as a fuel substitute today because it's very expensive. Fossil fuel is still cheaper than green hydrogen, and the transportation cost is very high. So what to do with the green hydrogen? Well, we can do something that is going to have a large demand in Paraguay and in the region, and that is green fertilizer. You combine green hydrogen with ammoniac, urea, I believe that is the name, and then you get the green fertilizers. And you know, Paraguay is a producer of food security, of food. Bolivia also, Brazil also, Argentina. So it's much cheaper to produce their fertilizer than to try to bring in from Russia and Ukraine, that right now they're under war. So we were successful. Right now there are some investment going there. The largest one is a British company, Atom, who is investing at this moment 400 in a factory for green fertilizer, and the value of the investment is around $400 million. So that is a way for Paraguay to really start diversifying the economy and using all the assets that we do have. Also, we have corn, we have soybean. Well, what to do with that? One of the things we want to do on this green idea we have is to start producing fuel substitutes, like biofuels, bioethanol, biodiesel. And there is a lot of interest on that. Actually, there are already a lot of investment, but more is coming right now, given that we have the advantage that we're producing the raw material for that. The government sometimes have to do nothing. It's the private sector who is going to decide. But one way that how we had helped the private sector on this particular area was that we have increased from 3% to 5% the mandatory mix between bioethanol with the regular fuel, and biodiesel also, by the way. And we're issuing probably in the next weeks a new decree increasing the maximum level, not only to 5, up to 12. Of course, we're going to be doing that gradually because there is not enough supply of bioethanol or biodiesel in order to do the mix. But all that, again, is in order to present Paraguay as a hub for green fuel, green energy. On top of food security, we are a country who is contributing to the green transition in the world. One more thing regarding diversification. We are in the middle of a tough neighborhood, but I have to be fair. Mercosur has been tough also, Mercosur. But if you look at the advantage, the net is positive for the country. And let me give you one example on which we are relying our policies in order to create jobs. I mean, to get decent jobs for the people. And that is the Maquila regime. Maquila regime, you probably know, Alejandro knows very well from Mexico. For Paraguay, is an incredible source of employment. And there is one tariff producing there, not tariff, one tax, it's a 1% tax, but they have to put the people who is working there on the social security contribution. The law is from the beginning of the 2000, but never actually started. In 2013, I was then governor of the central bank. There was another minister of economy and finance, and we started to go to Brazil and start promoting this regime. 20 years, and 10 years after that, the total export on the maquila sector is around 8% of total export from Paraguay. The amount is $1.2 billion per year. That is quite important for Paraguay. And total employment is around 25,000 in that sector. There you can find factories producing textiles, shoes, plastic, pharmaceuticals even. So thanks to Mercosur, is that we're having access to the Brazilian market. When we were there, when we went there in order to promote Paraguay as a hub of production for Brazil, we said to them, listen, this has to be a win-win situation. And how is that? You are importing from China around 100 billion per year. We don't want to take away any Brazilian job. We just want to substitute whatever you're importing from China. And this is going to be a win-win because it's not Paraguayans entrepreneurs that are going to go to Paraguay to produce, are going to be Brazilian entrepreneurs. And actually, really, the majority of the maquila regime is being used by Brazilian investors, putting a factory in Paraguay. But it is a win also for us because they're creating jobs in Paraguay, decent jobs. So that was the way how we were able to start inserting the Paraguayan economy into the Brazilian economy. We are a country of only 7 million inhabitants. The population is very small, but the Brazilian one is more than 200 million. So it's a huge market. And right now, every time we go out, we are telling this story that the right way to see Paraguay is not as a country of only 7 million, with only 7 million people there, but it's a country that, thanks to Mercosur, you have a market of 300 million. And that's a totally different game for us. So food, clean energy, and this maquila that give access to one of the largest markets in the world are going to be the key going forward for economic growth in Paraguay. Of course, we can start talking about other issues that you may find, I mean, poverty rates and so on, and I can explain later on, but I think it's already 20 minutes that Alejandro asked me to talk, and I can answer some questions that you may have regarding the Paraguayan economy or regarding, for example, any other economy in the region, because I'm also suffering what is going on in other countries in the region. The only thing I'm not gonna answer is the fact if you ask me about if Paraguay is going to the next World Cup in soccer. But any other question I can answer. Thank you, Alejandro.